Okay, hi everybody. I hope everybody is doing pretty good. And let me enable the chat. All right, so I hope everybody is doing pretty good. Great to have you people right here. We'll just take a few minutes just to wait for some members to join, and then we'll go ahead and get started with this session. In the meantime, please go ahead and write in the chat box where you are joining us from and what do you do so that we have a know-how of where people are joining us from. So I have enabled the public chat. If you can just go there and let us know that where you are joining us from and what do you do. That would be really good. Also, let me know if you're able to hear and see me all right. And Michael would also be here in a few. So, okay, in fact, Michael is here. He would just be joining. Okay, Hassan, I think you're the same Hassan in the group. So nice to have you. All right, let's hear from more people. Where are you guys joining us from? Please let me know that you're able to hear and see me okay. And in the meantime, just to let you know, I've been fasting for the last 16 hours or so. So I will try my best to keep my levels up high there for you people. So don't worry about that. All right, so shall we get started? Michael, are you there? Okay, so he would just be here in a couple of minutes. All right, so let's start the session. Let's go ahead with it, and Michael would be joining as well. Plus, more members would keep joining as we move forward with this webinar. So, we were used to doing webinars almost every month. We used to do two webinars every month, Michael and myself. And from now on, you would be seeing more frequent webinars once again. We had a small gap because we were doing some other things as well. Let it be the Pro90d virtual speech masters and that stuff. Now, that is something that we would keep doing as we move forward, of course. And we would also let you know more about it after the session or during the session. But you're going to see more webinars from now on a variety of things. Now, whatever we speak about, whatever the topics of these webinars are, they come directly from you people. So the people that Michael and I work with one on one, and the questions that we hear from them, and not only them, the questions that we hear from people in the Pro90d Virtual Speech Masters Club, in the WhatsApp group. So these sessions, these webinars, the content would be based on that. So make sure that whatever you guys want us to present on, do webinars and stuff on, so keep reaching us out and keep letting us know that these are the things that we want you people to speak more about. And you'll see those topics more and more as we move forward with these webinars. Hey, Michael.
Hey, Farrukh. I was here earlier, but I wasn't able to get on stage. So can you hear and see me okay?
Yeah,
Yeah,
we can
okay.
hear and see you. Okay.
I'm gonna go off stage or turn my video off while you're speaking, and then I'll come in.
All right, sounds good. So I think we can get started now, and the members would keep joining if we have more
Yeah.
of them. All right, sounds good. So let's get started. In this session, in this webinar, rather, the topic, as most of you people already know, is anticipation. Anticipation has a huge role to play in speaking. First, let's discuss a bit about what anticipation means with respect to speech and speaking, and then we'll go ahead and discuss further on it. So, if you people can go inside the chat box and let me know what do we mean by anticipation as it relates to speaking? Like, what does anticipation mean? Anybody inside the chat box? Think ahead. Okay, good. Something else? Absolutely. So, anticipation, and you people can just keep getting your answers in right here as I keep speaking. So, anticipation, in simple words, it means looking out for stuff that hasn't happened yet. Looking out for stuff, anticipating stuff that hasn't happened yet. And anticipation in itself is not a negative word at all. Anticipation can be positive as well, anticipation can be negative as well. So if you're anticipating something, if you have some sort of a party or something, or whatever you have coming forward, and you're anticipating it, you're excited about it, that's also anticipation. So sometimes we think that anticipation only means anticipating the negative stuff. So anticipation in simple means going out there, visualizing stuff, and looking out for stuff out there in the future. Not only related to speech, but related to everything in life. You would notice that even right now, many of you, I'm sure, would be anticipating something about what you're going to be doing after this meeting, what you're going to be doing the next week, probably, the next month, probably, right? So, anticipation is very natural, and our mind looks out for stuff all of the time. Same is the case with speaking. So whenever you have speaking situations coming forward, you would almost always start to anticipate them. Now, the problem is that if you have been struggling with your speech for a while, people usually anticipate speaking situations negatively. Now, I'm not speaking about anticipation of words, which we will be speaking mostly about during the session, but we are talking about anticipation of speaking situations. Most of the people who struggle with their speech, they basically look out for speaking situations and see themselves having a hard time speaking. They see themselves getting stuck. They see themselves that they are not doing as well as they want to do. And that anticipation in itself plays a big and a huge role when they actually have to get out there and speak in those exact speaking situations, right? So, anticipation in speech means looking out for speaking situations that you have coming forward. Phone conversations, one on one conversations, presentations, interviews, or whatever it might be. Now, within a specific speaking situation, which many people struggle with, is anticipation of words. All right, I'm saying something, I have to speak about something, and now my mind is scanning ahead, looking out for words and worrying about words, worrying that I might get stuck on that word. I might get stuck on this word. I might get stuck on that word. I have historically struggled saying that word or saying those words in the past, so I might once again struggle with my speech right here. And the moment you anticipate, the moment that worry starts to jump in, and the moment that worry starts to jump in, you start to get stuck because it makes you focus on what you don't want. The moment you anticipate, you're like, oh, I'm anticipating that word. I hope I don't get stuck. Or some of you might even fear anticipation. I hope I don't anticipate because I know that when I anticipate, I'll get stuck on the word. So I hope I don't anticipate. The problem is the more we worry about anticipation, just like the more we worry about getting stuck, unfortunately, the more it would happen. So the more you try to not get stuck, the more you would get stuck. And I think this is something that all of us might already know. Same is the case with anticipation. If you fear anticipation, if you try not to anticipate, I hope I don't anticipate, the more you would anticipate because your mind's focus would be on anticipation all of the time. Like we always speak about the mental stuff. If I ask you to not focus on the image of a red car right now, don't focus on the image of a red car. And that is exactly what you would be focusing on. So the moment you ask yourself not to focus on something, you're exactly focusing on the same thing. So it means that probably we need to do something else. Trying to trying to avoid anticipation, trying to get rid of anticipation is not helpful. There is something else that we can do. What we can do, we'll speak more about it as we move forward with the session. Now, one more point I'll say on this is that I'm sure that many of you would have experienced a situation where for some reason you're flowing with your speech, you're speaking smoothly, you are getting along good with your speech, and all of a sudden, after you speak, you look back and say, how was I able to say that word? I have historically struggled saying that word in the past. Sometimes people are shocked, like, how was I able to say that word smoothly right there? Has that ever happened to you? If so, you can write a yes inside the chat box once again. That means that for some reason during that time, you were not anticipating, you were not worrying about it. Because you were not anticipating, because you were not worrying on it, you did not get stuck. So it means that anticipation in itself has a huge role to play. If we can have a way where we can start to calm down this anticipation, we can start to calm down the worrying about getting stuck, it means that the more smoothly you would be able to speak, because anticipation, worrying about words would start to take care of themselves as we do something else. What's that something else? We'll talk about it during the session. Michael, do you have something to add on this so far?
Yeah. Let me just make sure that you can hear me okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just a really quick comment, because we're going to get to this later in terms of how to change this. But the good news is that anticipation is a habit, right? So when you find yourself constantly anticipating, negatively anticipating, that is, right, or worrying about words, about upcoming speaking situations, that's a habit. And what the good news is that we can replace habits. So in today's webinar, we're going to be sharing with you various strategies and techniques to replace this habit of constantly negatively anticipating.
All right. Thank you for that point, Michael. All right, so let's start to jump into some of the things that we can do to make sure that we are not overwhelmed by this anticipation, worrying about speech, anxiety, and everything else. We just figured out in the first 10 minutes that trying to avoid it is not helpful. During this program, during our webinars, during our sessions, you would often hear us say a word replace, and that has a huge role to play. One of the bad news is that Michael said it's a habit. Unfortunately, for most of the times, we can't undo a habit in our brain. So we already have a habit. The more we try to undo it, the more we try to just avoid it, the more it happens. We just discussed about it. So we know that doing that isn't helpful. But what we can do is that we can replace that habit of anticipating words, worrying about words, getting stuck with something else. You can't do both of the things at the same time. So if you do the second thing, and there are various parts to it that we would speak about, the first thing would take care of itself. So what you're doing is that you have one thing right here and you're slowly replacing it with the next thing, right? So if you want to not focus on the image of a red car, and you just try to not focus on the image of a red car, the more you would focus on it. But instead, you can focus on the image of, let's say, some sort of a blue car in your mind. And the moment you focus on it, the image of a red car takes care of itself. So we need to replace it. Now, replace it with what? So there are various things that we would speak about right here. One of the first things, it is something that you would hear Michael and myself speaking a lot about. And sometimes you might say, like, they're always speaking on this, and is this really that helpful? We have found out that almost 80% of the speech improvements from people come with focusing on this one thing, right? And that one thing is trying to develop a better amount of control over our speech. People often, especially the people who have a hard time speaking, who struggle with their speech, often they feel like they are out of control. They don't have the level of control over their speech. They're all over the place. They don't know how to channel their speech in the right way. This makes them constantly anticipate, constantly worry about stuff, constantly struggle, and all those sort of things. So, the first thing that you need to do is develop a control over your speech by slowing down your speech as you speak. This is something which might sound very basic, which might sound very simple, but often it is the hardest thing for people to do because most of us are used to speaking really fast. Speaking is often like having to drive a car. If you're going really fast, if you're driving really fast, and if someone comes in between, you have very less time to react. You have very less time to go from the right side, to go from the left side, to apply the brakes, or whatever you have to do. Same is the case with speaking. The faster you are going, and with that you're also anticipating, so you have very less time to react, you have very less time to react to what you can do in those situations. So by speaking fast, you're anticipating as well, and you would get stuck more as well because you would hardly have any control over your speech. So the first thing, foremost thing, basic thing that we want you to do is focusing on slowing your speech down. And when we say slowing down your speech, we mean slowing down your breathing. First of all, breathe more, slowing down your breathing, slowing down the act of speaking, slowing down your speech, even slowing down your movements, slowing down your hand gestures, slowing down your facial expressions, slowing down your body movements. Try to speak slow and try to use your hands fast. It would be really hard. Or try to speak fast and use your hands slow. It would be very fast. It would be very hard, right? So these things go hand in hand. Once you move slow, once you breathe slow, it often gives a signal to your brain that, all right, we are in a relaxed situation right now. Let's just slow down everything. And the more slower you are, or the slower you are, the more in control you would feel over your speech. And you would know exactly what to do, even if you anticipate a word or two. The next things that we are going to say, they will not even work if you're not doing this first thing. Because speaking fast, especially if you're a very fast speaker, you might be so much out of your control during speaking that focusing on the things that we speak about might not be very easy for you. So try to slow down. Now, how do you slow down your speech? First is a constant reminder to yourself. It's not just you would say to yourself once, slow down, and you would start slowing down your speech. There would need to be a constant reminder over and over, over and over, over and over again. Before a speaking situation, even during a speaking situation, at the back of your mind. Breathe, slow down. Breathe, slow down. Breathe, extend your words. Breathe, slow down. A constant reminder needs to be there. You would see that the moment you focus on it, the next second you would be back to speaking fast. Then you shift your focus back to it. Then back to speaking fast. Then you shift your focus back to it. So don't get discouraged if you keep switching back to feeling out of your control, feeling out of control over your speech, speaking fast. This is a very natural process which happens. The more you keep doing this movement, the more you keep bringing your mind back to focusing on slowing down your speech, the easier and easier and easier and easier it would become. One thing, or probably two, that you can do to slow down your speech, and we have spoken a lot about it. One thing is extending out more of your words, like elongating, stretching out more of your words as you speak. It's often like highlighting a word, emphasizing a word. So if I'm saying the word emphasize, I'm actually extending the word emphasize. And I'm also extending more of my words right here as I'm speaking. So the more you extend out your words, the slower you speak, because you can't speak fast if you're extending out more of your words. So even if you have a hard time focusing on slowing down your speech, you could focus on something that makes you slow down your speech. What's that something? Extending out more of your words. It can really help you slow down your speech by a great deal, right? There is also something that we call as articulating, using your mouth more. And Michael, would you like to speak about it more?
Yeah, and I also wanted to say that over the last decade plus, it's been more than 13 years now, one of the things that we've discovered from working with our clients and students in science even is that, believe it or not, the simple thing that Farrukh is talking about, slowing down, um, and there's some other things that we'll probably talk about too, but slowing down is probably one of, it's not the most, but it's one of the first steps and the most important keys to smoothing out your speech, to making your thoughts more clear so you don't get foggy. So slowing down is a lot more important than what many people think. And like Farrukh said, it may sound simple. Okay, we'll slow down. But it's not just about us telling you to slow down. We actually have methodologies and processes to help you slow down. And that's what Farrukh is outlining now. So my point is, slowing down is so important that even if you just did that, uh, that could give you a huge amount of your success. So, and uh, you wanted me to say a little bit about articulation, right? Articulation, we use these words interchangeably, and other people do too, but technically it's enunciation. But we like to use the word articulation because it also involves other things. So when we say articulation, we're just talking about using your mouth more, as opening and using your mouth more. Why? Because some people mumble, they kind of keep their mouth closed, and and so it's more difficult to hear them. Also, opening and using your mouth and finishing your words. Finishing your words means listening for the endings of your words. So opening your mouth using your jaw, your teeth, your tongue when you're speaking helps your speech to be more clear, but it also helps you be more proactive when you're speaking rather than reactive. And what do we mean by that? Well, when you're reactive, often you'll mumble, you'll cut your words off, you'll hit a difficult word or anticipate, and you'll react to that word. When you're proactive, you're literally using your mouth more, using your tongue, your jaws, you're using your body more, like your face and your hands and your head. So you're actually being more proactive, which creates more energy and momentum and gives you greater control over your speech. So sometimes just by articulating, you'll find that you can say words that you thought you couldn't say, or that maybe even you got stuck on a second before, and then you articulate that word and it comes out. So articulation, very, very important, and it can help you slow your speech down.
Absolutely, Michael. All right, thank you. So, we talked about slowing down, we talked about extending and articulating that help you slow down your speech. And often remember, sometimes, or most of the times, in fact, if you're a very fast speaker, so you might need to focus on super slowing down your speech. We have seen that if someone is a really fast speaker, focusing on slowing down, they might still end up speaking a bit on the faster side. So sometimes you need to focus on super slowing your speech down, especially at the start. At the start of presentations, meetings, interviews, one on one conversations, because If at the start you can get yourself into a rhythm and flow, if you can get a control over your speech at the start, most of the things go pretty well as you move forward with it. But still, as a whole, try to be on the slower side. And if you think that you speak super fast, try to focus on the next extreme. I'm going to speak super slow, and you lie somewhere in between. All right? Very, 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 very important. Now, this is something that I've heard many of the people saying, and even one of my clients, I was working with him, I think 2 weeks ago, and he asked me something that made me really just think about something, and that was, when I slow down my speech, doesn't it mean that I'll anticipate more words? Because I'm going slower, I'm giving my mind, I'm giving my brain more of a chance to go ahead and anticipate words. But fortunately, that is not the case. Now, whenever we ask you to focus on slowing down your speech, we are not talking about slowing your speech down, speaking like this. Because if you slow down your speech like this, you are giving your brain, you're giving your mind a chance to look out for, anticipate the words ahead, and worry about them and get stuck on them, right? What we mean when we talk about slowing your speech down is speaking like this. You are on the slower side of speaking, but still there is a flow, rhythm, and cadence to your speech. You're not having those unnecessary pauses every now and then after every word or two that we call as choppy speech. Because if you do that, then you would always be looking out for words, scanning them, anticipating them, worrying about them, and eventually getting stuck. So, something that you need to incorporate with slowing down your speech is making sure what we call as airflow linking your words. So, instead of speaking word by word, if you're speaking like this, if there's a flow to your speech, it's like you're just gluing and connecting the words together. You're often showing your brain that you're not speaking certain words, but you're speaking long sentences, you're speaking long phrases. So when I say you are speaking long sentences, and when I say when you're speaking long sentences, it often sounds like it's one long word. You are speak like where one word ends, the next word begins immediately after. So the more you link and connect your words together while you are speaking slow, the less of a chance you're giving your mind, you're giving your brain to anticipate words. Why? Because you're showing it that I'm not even saying words, specific words. I'm just speaking in a flow. And when you're speaking in a flow, what we call as blending of words, gluing the words together, it makes a huge amount of difference because anticipation mostly tries to find ways in between words. So whenever you have a stop, whenever you have a pause, your mind might start to look ahead. Oh, I have to say that word. I have to say those words. But when you're speaking in a flow, when you're connecting and linking your words together, there's almost no chance or very little chance that you're giving your brain, you're giving your mind to anticipate and get stuck. This is incredibly, incredibly important. One of the most important things I would say, if not the most important, while I was working on my speech, because I was very choppy with my speech. And Michael made me realize that this was exactly the reason why I anticipated a lot and why I struggled with my speech a lot. So, blending, gluing the words together, airflow linking is incredibly important. What I just said, airflow linking, it means that you need air for it as well. If you don't have air, if you don't breathe, it would be really hard for you to maintain the flow. It would be really hard for you to maintain the rhythm in your speech. So when you breathe more, extending and blending both become quite easy. If you don't breathe more, you are short of breath, it would be really hard, really, really hard to extend and blend your words together. By blending, we mean saying more words in a phrase, and in order to say more words in a phrase, link more words, and say more words in a phrase, it means that you would need to have more air in your system as well. And for that, you would need to breathe more as well. Breathing has an incredible role to play. We have heard many of our clients saying that just sometimes by breathing, by focusing on breathing, my new speaking style is activated just by focusing on breathing. So, once again, this also might sound very simple, very basic, but oftentimes it can just get you into your new speaking style right in the moment because your mind is like, all right, so we are breathing. What do we do while we breathe? We extend and blend. Okay, we are extending and blending. What do we actually do when we extend and blend? We use our new speaking style. We model, we do this, we do that. So just one thing, often one thing starts to trigger a chain of reactions which actually starts to activate your new speaking style. So breathing, extending, and blending, using them together starts to take your speech to a whole new level. If I'm just extending and not blending, my speech would sound like this. It helps me slow down, but it is very, very choppy. If I just blend and not extend, my speech would sound like this. So if I'm just linking and connecting my words together, but I'm not extending my words, my speech would sound like this. Now I'm in a flow, but that's too fast. But when you have a combination of extending and blending, extending and or articulating would help you to slow down your speech, and that blending thing would help you to maintain the rhythm in your speech. And the more you focus on these two things, the more you focus on them, the less of a chance you're giving your mind, you're giving your brain to look out for words, to scan words, to anticipate words, to worry about them. And guess what? The less that happens, the less you would get stuck. Because oftentimes it all comes down to anticipations, it all comes down to worries. So extending and blending, and for that, breathing is incredibly, incredibly important. Michael, do you have something to add before we move further?
Yeah, some people worry about speaking too slow. So if we say speak slow or speak or start super slow, people are like, well, that sounds weird. That feels weird. I can't do that. So what often happens is because you're at the other extreme, or you're speaking too fast, or you're feeling rushed, which has a similar effect as speaking too fast, then you feel like you're out of control. You start speaking choppy, you start getting stuck, stammering, stuttering, blocking, as you might call it. So slowing down gives you control. Like Farrukh says, sometimes you have to go to the other extreme just to kind of bring you back to the middle. But my point is, if you can slow your speech down enough, and sometimes that does mean a kind of starting out super slow, you will eventually start to speak more dynamically. Now, what does dynamically mean? Well, it means a combination of fast and slow, right? And so if you notice the way I speak, some people think I speak slow, but I actually don't. It's actually dynamic. Now, there are other people who speak faster than me and people who speak slower. We're not telling you to drag your speech. Sometimes you need to, what you might call drag your speech in the beginning, those first few words, the first phrase or so. But there's ways that you can speak super slow and it still sounds good by inflecting and body language, all those things you can do while you're speaking slow so that it normalizes, it sounds normal. But what will happen is you will start to speak more dynamically. Once you've gotten control over your speech, you'll start to speak more dynamically. And the other thing that will happen, and this is kind of a principle, is the smoother you speak, the smoother you will speak. The less you'll think about your speech, the less you'll anticipate. So once you start speaking with a flow and a rhythm, you stop seeing the words and you just start thinking about the idea and the concept, and you focus on the audience in a positive way. These things will happen, but often it takes slowing down your speech or sometimes speaking super slow for a while. So don't believe your mind or even other people, if you think or you tell yourself, I can't slow down, I can't speak super slow, or I can't speak slow because it'll sound weird. Initially, even if you're just slowing down, we're not even talking about speaking super slow. If you just slow your speech down, slower than what you normally speak, it will feel weird. It may sound a little weird to you and to other people, but only because it's different. You're not accustomed to it. They're not accustomed to hearing you speak that way. We hear this all the time from coaching clients and from students. And it's because it's a part of your identity. This is not the way I speak. I speak this way. People are used to me speaking this way. People around me speak this way. But once you start to slow your speech down and then you start speaking more dynamically, people will not only get used to it, you'll not only get used to it, but they'll like it and they'll listen to you more, believe it or not. I'm telling you, this is an absolute. Once you start to speak more, to slower, and then more dynamically, and you're articulating, and you're inflecting, and you're using good body language, you're going to speak more clearly, more confidently, calmly. People are going to listen to you more.
Absolutely, Michael. Thank you. All right. So these are some things that even just by focusing on these things, it can make an incredible amount of difference in your speech, in your anticipation, in your worries. It can be often that one thing that takes you to the next level. One point that I would just restate right here, that when I speak about blending, I don't mean I don't want you to pause. I want you to pause, of course, because if you don't pause, you cannot breathe. So you utilize that pause to breathe, and then you extend and blend. Then you pause wherever you feel like you need to breathe again. Then you breathe, and then you extend and blend. And then you breathe, and then you extend and blend. So you utilize those pauses to breathe. But in those in those pauses, like someone asked, I think, what if I'm anticipating? The moment you anticipate, you shift your focus towards extending and blending, using your new speaking style. Try not to not anticipate, and we'll speak more on it as we move forward, because if you try to not anticipate, we have already discussed, the more it would happen. So just try to replace that anxiety, that anticipation on words to let me extend and blend my words. Oftentimes, we feel like when we're speaking, we need to anticipate every single word. That might be the case if you are learning a new language. Like I'm learning the language of German these days, since I am here. But if you are fluent in a language, let it be your own personal language, your mother language, let it be English or whatever it might be, believe it or not, your mind, your brain knows how to say what you have to say. You just have to trust yourself. Often, you just need to show yourself some direction. I need to speak on this. For example, right now, Michael and myself, we are not focused on the words that we are saying, that we would say words that we are saying. We have some content in our mind that we want to give to you guys, and our brain and mind knows exactly what words to use, how to use, and what to say. It's just like walking. When you walk, you don't focus on the mechanics and aspects of walking. I'm moving my right foot first, probably my left foot first. No, I need to move this first. That way, walking would be quite weird. Same is the case with the content. Focusing on the content means focusing on the main idea. All right, I need to speak on this, and these are the 3 points that I want to say on this. And then trying to shift almost 80% of your focus, 80% of your attention on using your new speaking style. And you trust yourself that you're going to be able to say what you have to say, because your mind, your brain knows that language. It's incredibly important. And as you move further, as you move forward, you won't even need to focus on the mechanics that we are talking about right here, slowing down, blending, and everything, because even that would become automatic. Right now, yeah, you know,
No, go ahead.
yeah. So right now, Michael and myself, we are not focused on extending, blending, this and that, because it is automatic after constant repetition over time, right? So this is something that I want you to keep in mind. Yes, Mike.
There's a question that I wanted to go ahead and answer so we don't
Mm-hmm.
forget it. It says in a presentation, in a public presentation where you have to pause and moving from one slide to the next, how do you prevent anticipation? So uh, in any presentation, really, or conversation, you want to focus on what we call Vic and Rick. And while we won't go deeply into that, I'll mention it briefly. We've talked about it in lots and lots of other videos and trainings. It's just a way to put your focus where it needs to be. So let's say you're shifting from slide to slide, or you're answering a question or whatever, then you want to keep your focus on Vic and Rick. So the V and the R, value is what I'm about to say valuable to the audience? Is this slide valuable? Well, it probably is if you put it there. Is this relevant? Am I answering the questions? Are relevant to the question, to the conversation, to the people that are here? That's the V and the R. I, am I holding their attention with my speaking style? So am I using body language, facial expression, articulating, so forth? Am I engaging them? Or am I impacting them? And then the C, which there's two parts, clarity. Uh, am I speaking clearly? Can they hear me? Again, enunciation, articulation, speed, okay, and structure. So there's style and structure under clarity. So have I logically laid out this comment or this argument or whatever it is that I'm talking about? So let's boil that down and answer the question, which is, what do you do if you're switching from slide to slide and you start anticipating? You keep shifting your focus back to Vic and Rick, right? And that will become your new habit. Like now, I would say I almost never anticipate a word. Almost never. Maybe in Spanish, almost never anticipate. It's not something that happens. Doesn't mean I don't get stuck. Doesn't mean I don't have this fluency, because I absolutely do. But I rarely anticipate because I've developed a habit of either just being present and not thinking about speech at all, or thinking about Vic and Rick, or just focusing on the other person, right? So you'll develop the habit of keeping your focus where it needs to be while you're shifting from slide to slide or when you're in a conversation or whatever.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you for answering the question. And even if more of you have more questions, so just ask them in the chat box and we'll just get to it in a few. So, one more thing that I want to add in right here, and that has a huge role to play, and that is the more options you have, the freer you would feel. I would repeat that again. The more options you have, the freer you would feel, and the less you would worry about anticipation. The less you would worry about anticipation, the less it would happen, and the less it would happen, the less you would get stuck. So, what I mean by having more options, you need to just realize the fact that whatever we have talked about so far, the Pro90D speed system gives you a lot of tools that you have in your bag. So, honestly, if you see, there's no reason to worry about anticipation. There is no reason to fear anticipation because you know that, hey, even if I anticipate, I know what to do. If my mind anticipates a word ahead, I know I'll extend out on that word. I'll overemphasize that word and or I'll blend that word with the words previous to it. I'll make sure that I don't say that word by itself. I'll just blend the word with the words previous to it. I can extend it out. I can inflect on that word or I can inflect on the words previous to it. So when in your mind you know that I have a lot of options, you often start to worry less and less and less and less and less and less about anticipation because then you are saying to your mind that let the anticipation come. So what? I know what to do with it. Even if I anticipate a word, I'll extend it out. I'll emphasize on it. I'll blend it with the words previous to it. I'll inflect on that word. I'll do this. I'll do that. So when you have more options, and this is always the case, sometimes we feel like we need to say this one sentence, we need to say this one thing, and there is just one way we can say this one thing. That is where the pressure, anticipation, and worry starts to come in. But when you know that, hey, even if I anticipate, there are various things that I can do. I'll do one of them and I'll move forward with my speech. Your mind would say, okay, so it means that that's not a worry now. All right, I'll not anticipate, or I'll not anticipate as much. So it's often like you are often not inviting anticipation, but you're not worried about it because you know that even if it is there, even if you're inviting it, you know what to do with it. So this way, you would have more options. And the more options you have, the freer you would feel. And the most funny part and the best part is that when you have so many options, you feel so much relaxed, you feel so much at ease that you might not even have to use those options. You might end up saying what you have to say in that one single way because just knowing that you have so many options makes you so much relaxed, cool, and calm. So always make sure that you have inside your brain that you have so many options. There's not just one way of saying something, there are various ways of saying something. Michael, I'll just add one more point here.
Mhm.
And while speaking, even if you feel like none of these things would work out, even if I extend, even if I blend, even if I model, even if I inflect, even if I articulate on that word, even if I do all of those things, I would still get stuck. Although there would hardly be a time where it would happen. Even if you feel like that in the moment, it just isn't working. The last option, the last resort should be to switch the way you say it. In no circumstance should you force the word out, try to push the word out, because the more you do that, the more you are reinforcing the memory of disfluent speech. But if you switch the way you say it, in the last case, that's not the best option. The best options are what we just talked about. In the last case, you know that even if I feel like it's just not working, I'll change the way I say it. I heard one of my clients saying that, isn't it some sort of a bad habit? You might say that it's a bad habit, but it's still a lot better than forcing a word out, than pushing a word out. And the thing that you're doing right here is that you're showing your brain your successful speaking experiences. You're showing your brain yourself speaking smoothly. And the more your brain, your mind sees you speaking smoothly, the more the new memory of your new speaking style starts to build up and replace that old speaking memory. Just remember, never force a word out. Even in the last case, you can switch the way. There would hardly be a case where you would need to do that, but make sure that you use all of the other things that we talked about. Even if you anticipate and you're like, okay, even if the anticipation comes, I know what to do. In the last case, what I'll do, I'll switch the way I say it if I feel like nothing is working in the moment, right? This way, you are taking the pressure off of yourself. You're not like, oh, what if anticipation comes in because that would make me get stuck. Now you know that anticipation would not make you get stuck. Let your mind anticipate. If it anticipates, you know what to do. Yes, Michael.
Yeah, many of our clients and students will tell you that once they get into the system, they feel more confident and they feel more relaxed and more in control, even if their speech hasn't quite transformed yet because they just got in, right? But they feel calmer, they feel more confident, they feel more relaxed. And it's because they know they have tools, they know they have options. So just the knowledge of having options can allow you to feel more confident and to even speak smoother because you know you have more options. But it's when you feel like There's nothing you can do. I'm stuck. What do I do? There's nothing I can do. I have to do this. This is where hopelessness comes in, right? And discouragement. And then people go out and they'll look for lots of different techniques and things. And some of them will work, some won't work, some will work sometimes. People will even use our techniques and they'll work temporarily. But we try to tell you that it's not just about using techniques, it's a holistic process. And so there are various things that we have you do. Some are physical, some are more psychological and mental, and some just have to do with changing your identity as a speaker. And they all work together. And sometimes you won't know which one is going to help you, right? But what these things do is they give you options, which gives you freedom. So the more options you have, the freer you feel. The freer you feel, the more confident, the more in control you feel.
Absolutely. So these are some of the things which are really, 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 really important. And just like we said, that there is no reason to fear anticipation now. You know what to do with it. In simple terms, if I would shorten what we have said so far, if you're using your new speaking style, you're breathing, extending, and blending, or you're modeling, we'll speak about modeling in future webinars, and we've spoken a lot about it in our previous sessions. The more you are using your new speaking style, the less you would be anticipating. But even if the anticipation comes in, you know what to do with it. You know that if I anticipate a word, I'll do this. So what? Let the anticipation come. And the fun part is that when you stop worrying about anticipation, it often takes care of itself because you're no longer worried about it. Another point which goes along with that is for you people to understand that getting stuck is not a big deal. Sometimes we make it a big deal. I am working on my speech. I should not get stuck. My speech should be 100% fluent. When we have these unrealistic expectations, often those just inculcate the fears that make us get stuck. Go out there, look out there in the real world. Almost everyone, everybody gets stuck. It's just that they don't associate themselves with stuttering and stammering, so it does not impact them at all. We have associated ourselves with it. So, one thing that you need to do for sure is to start to disassociate yourself with the terms stuttering, stammering, blocking. In fact, those are the terms we want you to never use for yourself. Even if you have to use it, for example, if our clients are saying something to us about unsuccessful speaking experiences, we say that you can say, I got stuck there. I got stuck there. But that does not have a huge impact on you. Why? Because everybody in this world gets stuck. So if you get stuck, just know that it's a bump in the road. You're still on the road to smooth and excellent speech if you're working on your speech. So don't make it a big deal. Expect yourself to have some failures. Expect yourself to get stuck. Because the less you would worry about getting stuck, the less that would happen as well. Even I might get stuck while speaking. Michael might get stuck while speaking. The best speakers out there in the real world, they even get stuck. They might even get stuck while speaking, but it does not matter. As long as you're not forcing the word out, as long as you're not having to push the word out, it's all fine. And the more you use your new speaking style, of course, the less you will get stuck. Even if it happens, that's not a big deal at all. So I just wanted to add that point. So the more options you have, the freer you feel. You know that even if I get stuck, that's not a big deal. You just have to make sure that you don't force out a word. If you get stuck, it's just a bump in the road. You have to look back and see, why did it happen? Probably I was going really fast. All right, let me slow down my speech. But there's no reason to really just focus on it, think about it, worry about it, because it happens with people all of the time. The best part about working on your speech is that your disfluencies would still be there, like we all have disfluencies, but they would be even lesser than the average person because of you having worked on your speech. Sometimes we have a false belief that the average person's speech is 100% fluent. It's not. No one's speech is 100% fluent. It's like 95%, 94%, even the best of speakers, right? So don't make it a big deal. You want to add something, Michael?
Yeah, I was looking at the news the other day, and I was just listening to how people speak. And these are sometimes newscasters or guests that they have on. And while most of them probably are not stutterers, maybe some of them have been or whatever, but probably most of them are not, because you're talking about maybe 1% of the world. But these people are out there, and some of them are terrible speakers. And you all know people who they don't stutter technically, but they're terrible speakers. And they use lots of ums and ahs all the time, or likes, and they repeat stuff. And it's just some of them are hard to listen to, but they're not stuttering. So when you go through this process, even though you still might, I was telling one of my clients the other day, sure, technically, occasionally, I still stutter sometimes. I still block sometimes. But I'm not going to keep saying that to myself and thinking that and identifying myself, because all of the work that I've done over the past couple of decades has helped me to become an excellent speaker. And doesn't mean I'm better than everybody else or better than most people or anything like that. It's just that I'm able to articulate and communicate my thoughts, hopefully clearly, smoothly, confidently. And what you're going to find, and what my clients, in fact, I have a video of a guy named Brahm, I think, and then there's another guy, and people will have come up to them and said, wow, you're an excellent speaker. That was an excellent presentation. And these are unsolicited. Why? And he said, well, I didn't believe this was going to happen, and it actually did happen. And so I'm creating this video just to let you know, trust the system, trust the process, because what they say will happen, as long as you do the work, it actually will happen. So once you are going, as you're going through this process, your speech can become better than the average speaker, even though you've come from a place of struggling. You can actually begin to speak better than the average person who ums and ahs and repeating themselves all over the place. So I just want to let you guys know that.
Absolutely. So please, this is an opportunity for you to keep letting us know about your questions and comments if you have them. We'll get to most of them right now before we start to wrap up the session.
Let's also go ahead, Farrukh, and you can paste those links.
Hmm.
So I think this is a good time. Just go ahead and paste all the links that we put in there in the chat.
Hmm.
If you guys have been following us and you want to become a part of our community, you can do so two different ways. One way is if you'd like to accelerate the process, meaning you've been watching the videos, you've been practicing, and you've gotten to a plateau, you just can't seem to figure out how to move beyond that, then that's a good time for you to work with us privately. And so Farrukh is going to post some specials that he's got running where you can actually work with him privately. He's been through the process himself, so he's been on the other side. And now he's a speech coach. He's been so for at least a few years now, I think, and has helped people go from sometimes severe stuttering to smooth speech. People have seen success in terms of getting jobs, getting new jobs, getting getting promotions, making high stakes presentations, all kinds of different things we've been doing. So accelerating the process is a way that you can start to take more advantage of your current opportunities. So some people sit back and go, I don't want to spend the money. I'll just do this on my own. I'm like that. So I did that for years. But at some point I had to stop and say, I'm at a plateau and I'm losing opportunities and I need to do something. And so I hired coaches, and I've spent probably hundreds of thousands of dollars in coaches, not speech coaching, but business coaching. So if you're at a place where you're missing opportunities, you've taken other courses and therapies and even taken our course and you've reached the plateau, then you need to look at this like an investment. And you're going to have to make a decision that either you're going to trust the process and trust us or not, right? Uh, I've personally been around for more than 13 years. I've got content way back to like 2008 or 9. And then I started coaching around 2012. 13 years full time, nothing else. I don't do anything else but coach people. So imagine all the knowledge and experience that I have, the thousands and thousands of people. I have over 64,000 students worldwide. Farrukh has coached many, many people over the years. He sat in on hundreds of my sessions, and now he's doing his own. And he has created his own successful track record. So Farrukh is also now he's doing a master's in neuroscience, right, in Germany. So he's getting inside the brain and seeing how this works. And he's kind of specializing in the area of speech and stuttering. And he's found that even with some of the experts that he's seen and heard, that everything that we're talking about is consistent with studies, and that there are things that even they are seeing in our process that they're like, wow, I didn't think about that. I haven't heard of that before, but it works, right? So this is a solid, scientifically based process. And if you want to accelerate the process because you're missing opportunities, don't sit back and not spend the money and lose. I mean, you're going to lose that money by losing that interview, by not getting that promotion. We have hundreds, maybe thousands of people who have said on video, hey, I went through the program and I made a presentation or I did an interview and I got a job and I got a 50% increase in my salary, or I got a salary making $100,000 or 50,000, whatever it is. So whatever thousands of dollars they spent in this process, they've already gotten it back like that first month. And then they get it back the next month and the next month and the next month. And because they're more confident, they're more articulate, they're going to get more and more opportunities. This is going to last them their entire life. So it compounds. But that's just the monetary side. You also have to look at the relational side. Your relationships are going to be better. We've had people who haven't had good conversations with their parents, with their siblings, with their spouse. They're quieter. They don't talk as much. Now they do. Right? So you're going to feel healthier. You're going to have better relationships. And it's an investment. So the only question is, do you absolutely believe, or at least 90 some percent, that this will work? And if you do, then why wouldn't you do it? Well, one of the reasons is I don't believe it'll work, or I don't believe I'll do the work. So if you don't think that you'll do the work, well, that we can't control that. But if you believe that you're ready to move forward and take advantage of your opportunities, you're smart, you're intelligent, you're knowledgeable, and you're just not able to get that out because of your speech, then you're going to want to come and join our community. So, one, you can work with Farrukh privately. Two, you can join our Virtual Speech Masters Club. I believe I put a link there for that. Virtual Speech Masters. Think of it like a supercharged virtual Toastmasters, but that's built on our system, on our science-based system that we've been using for more than 13 years, right? So it works. So you come and we are there, or we have the sessions every single Saturday, unless there's a special holiday. You can come and put into practice what you're learning, and you can learn to focus your mind, to take control, to slow down, or whatever in these sessions. Plus, we have a WhatsApp group, very, very active WhatsApp group. So That's another opportunity. And then finally, you can work with me privately. Some of you may want to work with me, and that's perfectly fine. So there's a link for that.
Sounds good, Michael. Thank you. So I've just shared the links inside the chat box. So if you're looking to work with us, if you're looking to work with Michael with us, the prices are going to go up. So this is one of the best opportunities. And Michael was just discussing with me that even Michael's prices are going to go up now. So if you're looking to work with us, now might be the best time. I've shared the link in the chat box for you to book a one-on-one call if you're ready for the coaching with Michael. I've also sent a link or shared a link to booking a one-on call with me if you're interested in working with me. And I've also shared some specials that we are offering with this webinar for working with me. You can find out all of the links out there in the chat box if you have questions on your speech, if you want to know that whether it's a good fit for you, you can book a one-on-one session with us and we'll see how to take this forward. Then if you join us, if you join our coaching, you also get access to the Pro 90D Virtual Speech Masters Club. That's complimentary, right? And if you want, you can just join the Pro 90D Virtual Speech Masters as well. It's a club, it's an opportunity to use, to practice whatever you have been learning from the system, right? So you're learning stuff, then you're practicing with people, you're giving feedback, you're getting feedback, and I don't think there's something more that we can do right there. You are practicing presentations, interviews, reading aloud, one-on-one conversations, group conversations, a lot of stuff. So ultimately, whatever you would get to use out there in the real world, you're practicing right there. All of this is exactly what you need to move forward with your speech. And I think Michael shared everything. So if you have something to ask or mention, you can do that in the comment section right now. And if not, you can reach out to us on Help Crunch right there, or probably on our emails, or book a session with us, or whatever you want to do. Michael, I'll also just go ahead and share my Pro90D email here.
Yep, that's fine. And
And
I'll share mine too.
yeah,
Probably support is better. So put that.
so you can reach us out right there as well. And if you want to ask something right now, you can do that. And then we'll go ahead and wrap up.
I also wanted to share. Recently started a podcast on Spotify, and let me grab that for you all and post that. I should have that link. Yeah, there it is. Give me just a second. I'll just post this link here for you. This is just a way that you can engage us and listen and leave comments. So you can join us on Spotify. Obviously, you can join us on Apple, so forth. But this is Spotify, and they've just started video podcasts. So that's pretty cool. And there's the link for that. But yeah, if there are no other questions, we will go ahead and wrap up. Thank you very much, Farrukh. We want you to go back and if you register for this, which you would have if you're watching this now, and if you're not watching this live, then you'll immediately get the replay. So yes, you will get the replay. I want you to go ahead and watch or listen to this, because there's some things that we talk about that could be key for you, could be pivotal, could be one new idea could change the whole direction of your life. That's something I learned from Brian Tracy. One new idea, one thing, be like, wow, man, okay. And then you start to do that, and then everything changes for you. So listen out for that. We talked about anticipation, options, slowing down. Remember that this is not about techniques. Yes, there are techniques and strategies, but this is holistic. So if you just focus on one thing, your results are going to be inconsistent. Sometimes they might not be long lasting. So if you say, I tried that and it doesn't work. I tried that and it stopped working. I guarantee you, you probably didn't do the whole thing consistently. And one of the things that sometimes people don't do is they'll do private practices, but they actually won't go out and remind themselves to use whatever it is. This could be something as simple as slowing down in their informal, casual conversations. So they say, well, this doesn't work under pressure. So then they try to go use it. They don't use it in their everyday speech. They don't try to slow down their everyday. They say, well, I don't really need it because they know me, I'm relaxed, but I need to use it at work. So they try to go use it at work, presentation or an interview, and it doesn't work. Well, there are reasons for that, and we know what those reasons are, and we have the solutions. So remember, this is holistic, and like one of my clients says, it's a total lifestyle change. This isn't just something where you can practice it an hour a day, 30 minutes, 5 minutes here, and that's it. No, this is a complete lifestyle change. And once you understand that and you immerse yourself, you're going to see incredible results. All right.
Yep. I think, Michael, we can go ahead and wrap up and
Okay.
look out for more and more webinar invitations as well. So, Michael and myself, we are going to do more webinars as we move forward. So, be on the lookout for that as well. And we look forward to seeing you in more webinars. We look forward to seeing you inside the system, working with us or working with the Speech Masters Club. So, be on the lookout. There's going to be a lot happening during these months.
Mhm. All right. Are we ready, Farrukh?
Yep.
Okay. Well, thank you guys very much. Check your emails for the replay and for some other things. And we look forward to seeing you all the next time.
All right. We'll see everybody.